Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of WCM Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl. We have a couple really awesome guests with us today, and I think my mic is echoing because I forgot to turn it off over here. So that fixes my issue. Am I echoing for anybody else?
Big time.
All right. Give me a second. Cara, why don't you take over and introduce the show? I'm going to try to fix it.
It seems better now.
Oh, well. I was just trying to get out of doing the show. That's why I see, it never works out in my favor.
Yeah.
Okay. Monday, we really got to move this show from Mondays. I feel like we would not have any issues if it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or any other day that existed. But so welcome to another episode of WCM Fireside Chats. My apologies for the mic issues in the background. I am still traveling and in new areas, and so super excited to be here with a couple guests. Andrea, Mike, Casey, Dylan is joining us too. We're going to have those guys introduce themselves. Today we're talking about solar power, and Casey keeps dropping off. He's got bad internet connection, stuff like that. So he's going to join us. And then we also got, I think, Wade Elliott is going to make an appearance, who works for a utility supply group and knows a lot about the power requirements and things like that. So we are available as a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, all those kinds of places, so you can listen to us later. And if you're watching live on one of the many Facebook pages, Canadian Camping and RV Council, WCM Fireside Chats, or what else, Campground Management, sorry, or Insider Perks, you can comment on the chat, and we'd love to get you guys involved in the conversation as well. So let's just start with, I guess, Andrea, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little about you.
Hi, my name is Andrea Newman. I own a couple campgrounds, and the one we're going to talk about today probably is the Kansas City East KOA. We recently installed a solar farm there, and most of it just went live last month.
Wow.
So I didn't know, I guess maybe I missed that in the pre-conversation. You never said Kansas City East KOA. I worked with the Lawrence KOA for a while, Kansas City West KOA, right? Actually,
Yep.
We still do.
Yeah.
So yeah, very familiar with the area, and I don't think I've ever driven to your park, but we work with Basswood up to the north of you too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, really beautiful area and interesting. Yeah, definitely to learn more about how your build process and stuff like that. So Casey, let's get your intro in before you disappear on us again.
Yeah, hopefully my internet connection holds through this. So I am a third generation manager at the Bellefonte State College.
Oh, shame.
Bellefonte State College, I'm going to guess PA, because that sounds familiar. But we'll get Casey back here. Mike, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about Contemporary and all the great things you guys are doing?
Sure. I am Vice President of Operations for Contemporary Resorts and Residences. We manage upscale luxury manufactured home neighborhoods and upscale luxury RV resorts. A couple in Camp Verde, Arizona, and spreading out our wings into California and Oregon and South Carolina. And we have a large solar installation at our RV resort in Camp Verde, Arizona.
All right, very cool, very cool. We're going to definitely dive into some of those details. Casey, second time's a charm. Really, it's three,
Try
so
again.
we're going to cut out again. It's okay. You've still got one more. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So third generation owner operator at Bellefonte KOA Campground in Pennsylvania. We have a solar field that we opened about 2 years ago. So we've been using the electricity from it for about 2 years now. So
Very cool, very cool. So obviously, like, there's a ton to dive into here, right? So let's just ask, I guess my first question is how did you guys get into solar? And we'll just kind of go around, right, real quick. What made you want to put it in at your park to begin with? Andrea, you want to start?
Well, I mean, my first main reason was that I am concerned about the environment, and I wanted to, and I saw this as an opportunity because we use so much electricity. This would be a more significant impact than some of the other things you can do to help the environment. So I thought, I have this opportunity, I'm going to use it. But another little dirty secret about solar is it makes sense financially. It makes money in a very short time. And so don't tell anyone, but it's a great deal.
Your secret is safe with us, I promise.
Yeah. We don't share.
No, you're right though. I mean, there's all kinds of benefits, and especially as the technology has kind of grown up over the last 20 years, right? In the beginning, it was a lot more expensive. Now it's gotten so much more cheaper and able to be more scalable, and doesn't need all the direct sun that it used to, right? And obviously you guys know a lot more about that than I do, but the technology has been improving at such a rapid rate that it's easier to kind of build in now. So Mike, I know you're new-ish at Contemporary, right? Were the solar panels at VRRV before you came?
They were installed as part of the maybe phase one of the development. Late in the phase, we'd work with an energy consultant who said that there would be a good return, and then we probably overspent on purpose because we transitioned them or double used them for kind of covered premium spaces as well. And so the structure that we have with the solar, we really overbuilt it from, really just, using the structure for solar energy so that we could also have that double use of premium. And then it powers about a quarter of our park or so.
Very nice. And are you going to keep building it to the point where it gets to 100%? Or are you happy with where it's at? Or?
No, I think it's quite an investment, certainly quite a cash outlay. And I think we're happy where it is. I think we're happy where it is right now, and especially, our location in Arizona, with the amount of sun that we get, there's definitely a payout, and it does pay about 60% of our utility usage in that area, that quadrant, if you will. But it's a little bit cost prohibitive to kind of add it after the fact, for us anyway, the way we would want to do it.
Makes sense. And so now we definitely want to dive into that, like the cost value proposition, right? But let me let Casey first introduce himself. And kind of, Casey, we were just asking, I know you introduced yourself, but just asking why solar was a focus at your property.
Sure. So, we've always considered ourselves progressively minded, and we want to be part of the solution as a business, not part of the problem. So that kind of started us looking. And then whenever we looked at it, we found a lot of good incentive programs from the government that made it a lot more affordable and seemed like something that was actually really reasonable.
Oh, shit.
I feel so bad for Casey. Yeah. So he'll be back on. He's going to jump in and out with us. But Cara, what have you heard from some of the parks in Canada? What are they doing with solar?
We do have a few. I personally know a park actually near me that installed a large solar field as well. They are producing, more than enough power to, I believe, at certain times of the year, they're actually overproducing and contributing kilowatts to the greater area, to the grid. So, and they received a ton of government, well, not a ton probably, but they did absolutely receive some government grant funds and things like that as well. So we are definitely seeing government support on in the majority of our provinces here. There are a couple of other campgrounds that I know of that are pursuing this as well for all the reasons Mike and Andrea and Casey are talking about already. I think there's a big appetite from consumers here in Canada to support businesses that have that progressive mindset and are making those choices that they value for their own, where they want to send them.
So it's an interesting thing, and Mike had touched on it briefly, just the power return on investment, stuff like that, the amount of sunlight they get in Arizona. How does that impact first in Canada, right? Because that's an interesting thing, right? I mean, obviously you get the same amount of sunlight as other areas, but is it different because of the positioning of you, like being farther north?
Yeah, well, and I think that ties into the technology improvement conversation you brought up earlier. I think things are really improving on the technology side, and we're seeing so many companies, energy pros that are able to really strategize things like time of the year and in relation to sun positioning and all of those things to really maximize the investment dollars and all of that. So I will say despite it being cold, we do get a lot of sun, and some here in Alberta where I live, it can be minus 30 degrees, but it's still sunny outside. So we do see some significant production despite quite cold temperatures.
Welcome, Mr. Wade Elliott. Can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can, sir. So do you want, we had already gone down and done introductions, and I guess probably we should acknowledge that Mr. Ben Quiggle was unable to join us this morning. We're really missing him. He's having some issues with his rental car, and so he's going to try to jump on with us a little bit later if he wants. But for now, Cara's leading the show, and I'm just kind of talking where I'm needed. So Wade, tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, how you guys are involved in solar, for those of us who don't know, or those of them who don't know.
So I'm the general manager. Used to be the owner of Utility Supply. We were recently purchased by a large international based company with a large presence in the U.S. and Canada. That company is Rexel, known in the U.S. as Rexel, Gexpro, and Platt. In Canada, there is it Winterbourne or Winterburn, amongst others. But Utility Supply Group is concentrated on RV parks, campgrounds, and marinas in the U.S. and Canada. As far as solar, our extent in solar is solar lights and advising people on other issues. I think we've had a couple of customers that I'm thinking of the KOA in Tucson that did this probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And I think most people, and Mike could probably confirm this, most people it's not necessarily powering the park, but using it to offset expenses by putting back out on the grid, especially depending on where your park is, the sunshine or lack of sunshine because it's night, can affect in some places when you need the power the most.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, and we were talking about that a little bit. Cara was talking to us about Canada and the different types of things. And so, how does it work for you, Andrea, in Kansas City? Like, I feel like we've talked to Cara, who's in the north. We talked to Mike, who's in the south. You're right in the middle, basically. So, yeah. How does the sunlight and the technology, if at all, does it impact you now that it's improved so much? Or
well, Missouri does get a little, snow and things like that, and so when snow's covering your panels, you don't get much.
Right. Yeah.
Anything. But since most of your customers come when the sun is out, it's kind of actually perfectly suited for not the south side, where they need it all the time, but for the ones that shut down during the winter or have lower customers during the winter, it's perfect because the solar output goes down at the same time that their need for it goes down. So it's not that you're necessarily not making enough to cover your usage. And so, we've only had that on fully on for about a month, but the parts that we did have on were covered with snow. We weren't making any, I was like, what's going on? And they're like, we have snow. So that's how it happens. So, but if there's sun, you're making money, you're generating energy, and in our case, send it back to our utility company. And so then they will give us a pittance of a refund for the extra energy we send them.
Does this change the calculations when you're looking to install in a Kansas City or a Pennsylvania or a Arizona? Does it change the calculations for cost offset, benefit, those kinds of things?
Go ahead, Casey.
Take that as fun.
I think you're on mute, Casey.
Sorry. Yeah, it does affect the calculations, but one thing we actually had, our installer has software that they were able to look at previous weather data for the past 7 years and see what the average kilowatt generation would be where we were putting the solar field using, longitude, latitude, GPS coordinates. So it does affect the cost to benefit. But you can plan for that and you can know that before you do the project. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think like with anything, I think learning, is important. And so, the park has now been open about a year and a half. The solar has been active almost that whole time. And so, we thought we knew what we were getting into, but as we look at the data, we just didn't really understand until now we've got a year and a half worth of information. And so, for example, shame on us, we didn't realize that we were accruing credit each month. And then in December, APS, which is our local utility company, credits us what we have been earning all at once. So when we did our budget, 14 months ago for 2020, we didn't budget that way. And so our December bill was way down. And then when we finished our budget in November of last year for this year, we didn't know that. So we didn't get the credit in January and February and went, oops. So, from a month by month standpoint, there's these swings based on how they calculate your credits. And then as we've been talking about, kind of time of location and then also time of use, as we learn more and more about it, it seems counterintuitive, right? But we didn't understand the length of daylight would make such a difference, right? So in the wintertime, of course, we got maybe, 10 hours of sunlight. And in the summertime, we could have 16. And so clearly our energy generation is higher in the summer when our occupancy is lower, and our generation is lower in the winter when our occupancy is higher. So our bills and how we budgeted were kind of way off kilter, just because, and when we were ramping last year, we were still ramping, so we didn't have our occupancy trends yet. And so needless to say, it's been very helpful as we understand, how much we're getting a credit now and how much each month it's powering, and how the utility company is working. But now that we understand the patterns and how it works, we're a lot further down the line and the complexity of it.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I want to bring in Wade. And Wade, can you just tell us, Ben said you maybe only have a half hour with us this morning, so I wanted to involve you real quick. How does it work from a pedestal power distribution standpoint with all the hardware? Is there a difference? Does it change for the park or?
For solar, actually, Ben had told me we would be discussing electrical vehicles here. So,
well, we might be. Ben kind of filled me in at the last minute. He had the last minute discussions, so we can definitely touch on that in a second. Yes.
Okay. So again, as I mentioned, really from a solar standpoint, it's really about feeding power back into the system. The pedestal on site does not change whatsoever, because it sees power. It doesn't care if it's coming from solar, from the grid, or where it's coming from.
Okay, makes sense. So let's talk about electric vehicles for a second, because this is obviously green energy. New things are coming down the pipe, and campgrounds need to be prepared for it. So how does your company, or what are you involved in with setting up some of those campgrounds for future success?
So a couple of big things. First of all, I think campgrounds are perfectly situated. They're typically along routes that are traveled. Whether you're looking for customers to come in that aren't campers, that are just looking for a charge and spend time in your store, your camp, or walk your park. I think it's a good marketing idea to advertise that you've got an electrical vehicle charging station. But the real problem, or the real concern that I have inside RV parks, are that most, I would say, if not most, everybody has access to the ability on the internet to find a adapter that will adapt the 50 amp receptacle in an RV park to allow them to charge their car. And that causes a couple of big problems. First of all, that adapter is not UL listed. It doesn't have all the safety devices. It doesn't automatically shut off when the car is charged. It doesn't turn on any exhaust fans if needed. And oh, by the way, if you're not metering, guess who pays for that? And a non-Tesla car to charge could cost anywhere from $4 to $6, depending on your kilowatt rate. I made that assumption using, I think, 11 or 12 cents a kilowatt hour. And again, I stress a non-Tesla, because a Tesla takes a lot more to charge. And
Right.
so in order to have an electrical vehicle in what's called EVSE, Electrical Vehicle Service Equipment, in order to have an electrical vehicle charger that's hooked up correctly, it has to be on its own connection. It can't be in a loop feed like park RV sites are. It has to be its own connection, because when you plug that electrical vehicle in, it draws 32 amps, and it draws 32 amps for the entirety of the charge. If you have if you have them looped together in an RV park, the RV park assumes that not everybody's going to be at full power all the time. But if you put a bunch of these in at full power all the time, you're going to start popping breakers. So the real concerns going forward are people using those devices to plug in their car where they shouldn't be. The other big concern is people that are coming in with an electrical vehicle that's the tow behind. They can plug that into their 20 amp and just let it sit there overnight and charge. And if you're not metering your overnighters, guess who pays for that? Mm-hmm. And if you're not asking what kind of vehicle it is and if they're going to charge it and charge extra for it, and you're not metering, guess what happens to your expenses? So I think that you really have to pay attention as more and more electrical vehicles are out there, especially the pull behind, that you ask the question, are you driving, or do you have a pull behind? We charge extra for you to plug in your pull behind into the 20 amp and charge it. Or if you need to, here's our electrical vehicle charging station, and we charge whatever it is you want to charge to do that. Those cost between $2,000 and $3,000, a lot more than an electrical pedestal, because it has a lot of safety features on it, and it does need to be GFI protected on that as well. So those are the big concerns that we have in RV parks. Is that, number one, they've got the power and they've got the space and they're well suited for it, but they have to be prepared for it.
So what is the easiest way in your mind for an RV park to kind of pivot and offer these kinds of services if they want to, without, obviously there's going to be an expense, right? But without a massive expense, without massive infrastructure changes, dig ups, builds, those kinds of things, while also making sure that the customer isn't getting angry like a resort fee thing with them?
Well, I think you start off by finding out exactly, what your customer base is doing. You ask the question when they come in. Do you have an electrical vehicle that you're going to charge? If you're going to plug it into the 20 amp, we want to charge an extra $5 or whatever you want to charge to do that. And you kind of keep track and figure out, okay, do I really want, what's in my area? Do I want to attract the drive-by electrical vehicle that's looking for a place to charge? And if they come in, what are they going to do while they're here? Do we have trails that they can walk while their car is plugged in? Do we have a store that they can spend an hour or so in? Or a place for them to sit and read their book and enjoy the quiet? It's really kind of how you market yourself. And I think that's important to how you go about it. But I think the right way to start is to start asking questions and find out exactly what your market is or what it could be before you spend any money.
Well, we've got a surprise for everyone. Mr. Ben Quiggle is going to join us here. Finally get to the questions that we're apparently supposed to be asking Wade that I didn't know we were supposed to be asking him. So,
hi Ben.
I decided that I should probably show up. Brian, it's nice to see you're in a new area, so and a wide open space too.
This is a virtual background. It's not really where I'm at. So.
Oh, okay, all right. That's a pretty classy background. So, right. Yeah, with the fireplace going and everything, that looks pretty nice. Well, hi everyone. Sorry I was a little late. I had some issues. I'm at the Michigan RV conference. I had some issues with my rental vehicle this morning. So that went pretty well though. So we've got all that fixed. So
is it a gas-powered vehicle? Maybe that's the issue. It's not an EV.
No, my issue is I ran over a screw, and my tire didn't like it very much. So that was one of the main issues. So hopefully everyone is doing okay. It's nice to see some of you in person for the first time, like Andrea, Casey. Wade, it's great to see you. And I was just listening in the last 5 minutes or so to what Wade was saying. A lot of good information there. So,
and sorry, Ben, I've got to go to my next meeting.
That's great. Yeah. Yep.
I was a little time limited this morning, but if we want to follow up with another session, we can do that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I knew you had to leave. So
I think there's a lot of useful things with pedestals and electrical and some of the EVs that I really would like to dive into, maybe in a different show with you, Wade, that we can plan ahead for.
Certainly.
Could I ask a different question on electric vehicles? So Ben, you had mentioned that, when you had reached out that, it'd be solar and electric vehicle topic, and listening to Wade speak. And I'm curious what the reach or the commonality of that is right now. Certainly in my comp set, I haven't seen, any. Granted, I'm in the wild west of Arizona. If I was in Seattle, maybe we'd have much more EV usage. But I'm curious how broad, people are seeing electric vehicles at campgrounds. What are those trends? Because I'm just thinking to myself, $3,000 for an electric vehicle pedestal at $5 a day. That's a lot of electrical vehicle charges. So
I have to say, and I'm up in Canada, so like you mentioned, the environment is probably different. But I used to, prior to working for CCRVC, I owned an RV park. And I would say probably 5 years ago already, I had, for the first time ever, a gentleman show up in my park off the highway and was like, I'm running out of gas here. And can I plug my car into one of your sites? And it was really the first time, that light bulb went off in my head where, there's an opportunity here for us to be strategic about this and use this, we added it to the website and added it as an amenity in the park. And that gentleman actually does a weekly trip, and he would stop there after that every week. And I actually charged him $20 to charge his car. And that did start to slowly grow, where we got to, within a year, I was seeing, maybe 15 or 20 in a month that would show up outside of the first guy to charge. And I do think that that's continuing to grow. I no longer work there, but the appetite for those, or the need to plug in, is growing with how many electric vehicle sales there are. And I think there's the ability to kind of correlate that by looking at, getting your hands on some sales data and usage data and things like that. But it seemed to be kind of exponentially growing.
And did you use a converter or an adapter like Wade had described as a no-no, or did you use one of these specially designed pedestals?
No, I didn't have specially designed pedestals, but I was fortunate to have, my husband was very knowledgeable and had purchased already for his own experiences with an electric vehicle a proper adapter. So we had one on site, and once this kind of started to grow, we did purchase a few more. But yeah, they were approved, UL rated, all of that. And so that's kind of why we charged more for the plug-in fees, was because we provided those adapters as well. And then we, it translated into, mini golf sales and ice cream sales and all these kind of unexpected things that, it's just an interesting dynamic for sure. Yeah. Definitely. So I'm interested. Oh, we've lost both Ben and Brian. I'm interested to hear from you guys in terms of how your projects are fairly new. I know, Mike, you already mentioned you probably won't do additions, but both Andre and Casey, are you planning to expand and add more? Or are you satisfied with kind of where things are sitting right now?
I'll go. We built ours to meet our current need, but ironically, we decided over over the summer that we should be adding more sites to our park. So we are going to probably be not fulfilling all of the need of the park. So we probably will be adding more. So eventually we will. And I hear that there are going to be eventually electric RVs and things like that. And so with that, that'll be a whole new ball game where we're going to have to add. And then I also have another park, and so I'm probably going to do another field at that park as well.
That's awesome. And what about you, Casey?
Sure. So when we built our solar field, we made it to get about 106% of what we use at the park, just to give us a little wiggle room there. But we did build a new bathroom and 30 new sites after that. And so we've talked about putting solar panels in. The only hesitation we have with that is that the USDA grants and some of the government programs that we use are a lot harder to get a second time. So the cost per panel per kilowatt will be a little bit higher for an addition than it was if we just, went all in whenever we first did the project.
Right. That makes sense. It's interesting, Andre, you bring up these electric RVs, and I admit my own experience and knowledge about them is pretty limited. Do you feel like that's something you're pre-planning for already, getting ready to start seeing those show up at your parks?
Well, unfortunately, I heard about them after I already had the project started, so I really haven't had a chance to impact our current plan. I would think that it's going to be a little while before it happens, and if so, it could be a big project again, and then maybe by then things will be different as far as solar pricing and things like that as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, Casey and Andrea, what size are your parks in terms of acreage and sites?
We have about 70 sites at our park. I want to say 13 acres. Where we put our solar panels was this unused piece of land near the expressway. So we had a nice field. At my other park, I'm thinking of building some kind of shade structures for the RVs and putting it on top of those.
Right. How about you, Casey?
Counting cabins and tents and all that, we're about 150 sites. We have 100 acres, but most of it's not developed. Our solar field too is down front, close to where the highway area is, because it seems to me that that's usually where people have the unobstructed view for the light. Because obviously you want to put it in a field that there's not going to be shadow on it at certain times of day and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's helpful to understand, because I'm listening to you describe, your 106% of your usage, and we're at about 25%, powers, but we're at 70 acres and 415 sites. So I bet you